At exactly 6:17 in the morning, the church bells echoed across the valley. It sounded like every other morning. The streets were quiet. The air was cold. A light fog drifted between the old stone buildings. Nothing seemed unusual. A local baker unlocked the front door of his shop. He had followed the same routine for nearly 30 years. Every morning began before sunrise. He expected to see delivery trucks. He expected to hear neighbors talking. He expected to smell fresh coffee from the cafe across the street. Instead, he heard nothing, not a single voice. He looked down the empty road. No pedestrians, no bicycles, no buses. Only silence. At first, he smiled. Perhaps everyone was sleeping late, but something felt wrong. The cafe door stood wide open. Inside, coffee cups rested on the tables. Steam still rose into the air. Fresh bread sat untouched. One chair had fallen onto the floor. Yet nobody was there. He called out. No answer. He stepped farther into the street. A city bus stood in the middle of the road. Its engine was still running. The front door remained open. Every seat was empty. The driver had vanished. His jacket still hung behind the wheel. The baker felt a chill. He hurried toward the town square. The fountain continued flowing. Water splashed into the basin. Birds landed beside it, but no people appeared. Cars remained parked exactly where they had stopped. One vehicle waited at a green traffic light. Its engine was humming quietly. The driver's door stood open. The keys were still inside. A bicycle lay on its side near the sidewalk. Its front wheel slowly turned. Someone had left it only moments earlier. Or so it seemed. The baker pulled out his phone. He called his wife. No answer. He called his son. Nothing. He tried his brother. Silence. Every call connected. Nobody answered. He ran home. The front door was unlocked. Breakfast waited on the kitchen table. A cup of tea was still warm. The television was playing the morning news. His wife's glasses rested beside the newspaper. But she was gone. His son was gone. Everyone was gone. He searched every room, every closet, every corner. Nothing. Only the sound of his own breathing. Panic replaced confusion. He ran back outside. He shouted until his voice became hoarse. No reply came from any house. Dogs wandered the streets without owners. A cat watched silently from a window. Somewhere nearby, a telephone continued ringing. No one answered it. The baker drove toward the police station. Its front doors were open. Police cars remained parked outside. Coffee sat on desks inside. Computer screens glowed. Emergency radios crackled with static. But every officer had disappeared. He picked up one of the radios. Only silence answered. He switched channels. Nothing. He drove to the hospital. The entrance lights were still on. Medical equipment continued beeping. An IV bag slowly dripped into an empty hospital bed. Wheelchairs stood abandoned in the hallway. Patient records remained open. Doctors were gone. Nurses were gone. Patients were gone. The entire building was empty. By now, the baker realized something impossible had happened. People had not packed their belongings. They had not fled. There were no signs of panic. No broken windows. No blood. No bodies. It looked as though every person in the town had vanished in the exact same second. He climbed onto the roof of the hospital. From there, he could see the entire town. Thousands of homes. Hundreds of streets. Nothing moved except the wind. Then, he noticed something that made his heart stop. Far across the valley, the church bell rang once more. But no one had pulled the rope. The second bell echoed across the valley. The baker stared at the distant church tower. No movement. No figure. No explanation. Yet the sound had been real. He climbed down from the hospital roof and returned to the street. For the first time, he noticed the clocks. The clock above the pharmacy. The clock outside the train station. The old clock mounted on the town hall. Every one of them showed the same time. 6:17. His wristwatch continued to move. His phone displayed the current time. But every clock in the town had stopped at exactly the moment everything changed. He entered the nearest apartment building. The hallway lights were still on. Music drifted softly from behind one closed door. He knocked. Nothing. He pushed the door open. Breakfast was laid out for 2 people. An omelet sat untouched on a plate. Orange juice remained half poured into a glass. A chair had been pulled back as though someone had just stood up. But the apartment was empty. In the bedroom, clothes were neatly folded on the bed. A laptop displayed an unfinished email. The last sentence ended halfway through a word. The cursor still blinked. He closed the computer and backed away. The silence was becoming unbearable. Outside, the wind carried a newspaper across the square. Its headline read, "Annual Summer Festival begins tonight." The date was today's date. Everything had happened only hours ago. He continued toward the elementary school. Backpacks rested beside tiny desks. Colored pencils were scattered across worksheets. One chalkboard contained a math problem that had never been finished. A basketball slowly rolled across the gym floor before stopping against the wall. No teachers, no children, no sound except the distant hum of electricity. The cafeteria still smelled of fresh bread. Milk cartons waited on trays. Nothing had spoiled. Time itself seemed confused. The baker left the school and walked toward the train station. A passenger train stood at platform 1. Its doors remained open. Suitcases lined the platform. A suitcase had fallen over, spilling clothes onto the ground. Tickets lay scattered by the entrance. The departure board still announced arrivals, but no passengers ever arrived. Inside the station office, a radio suddenly crackled. The baker rushed toward it. For a brief moment, he heard a voice. "Can anyone hear?" Static swallowed the words. Then silence returned. He tried to answer. No response came back. His hands were shaking. Someone else might still be alive. Or someone had been alive only moments before. He drove to the edge of town. The highway stretched toward the mountains. Every lane was empty. No traffic, no accidents. No abandoned crowds. Only a few cars stood motionless with their doors open. It was as if the drivers had simply ceased to exist. Beyond the highway stood the old forest. The trees swayed gently. Birds sang as if nothing had happened. Nature had continued without interruption. Only humanity was missing. As the afternoon faded into evening, hunger forced the baker to stop. He returned to the cafe. The coffee that had been steaming that morning was now cold. He sat alone by the window. For the first time all day, he allowed himself to believe he might truly be the last person alive. Then, a light turned on. Not inside the cafe, across the street, in the upstairs window of an abandoned house. He froze. Someone, or something, was inside. The light remained on. The baker did not move. He stared at the upstairs window across the street. A thin curtain shifted slightly. There was no wind. His heartbeat grew louder than the silence around him. He stepped outside. The empty street seemed longer than before. Every footstep echoed between the old buildings. He crossed the road slowly. The front door of the house was half open. It creaked gently as he pushed it wider. "Hello?" His voice disappeared into the darkness. No answer. The living room was untouched. A lamp glowed in the corner. A book lay open on the sofa. Reading glasses rested beside it. Someone had been here, or had been. He climbed the staircase one careful step at a time. The hallway was empty. He reached the bedroom where the light had been burning. The room was silent. No one stood inside. Only an old rocking chair. It moved gently back and forth. Back, forward, back, forward. The window was closed. There was no breeze. The baker searched every room. No hidden doors. No footprints. No sign that anyone had entered or left. He switched off the light. The chair stopped moving. He stood frozen for several seconds. Then he hurried outside. Night had fallen over the town. Streetlights illuminated empty roads. The silence felt heavier than ever. Unable to sleep, he decided to search for answers instead of waiting for them. At the police station, he found maps of the town. He spread them across a large table. Every neighborhood, every street, every public building. He marked every place he had searched: schools, hospital, church, train station, cafe, residential blocks. Nothing. The entire town was empty. He searched the evidence room. Inside were cameras used by investigators, portable radios, flashlights, a drone. He charged every battery he could find. If he was alone, he needed to think like a detective. Early the next morning, he launched the drone. It climbed high above the rooftops. The live video showed the town from the sky. Empty streets, abandoned cars, open doors, no movement. The drone flew farther toward the surrounding countryside. Fields, rivers, bridges, everything looked normal. Then the screen flickered. For one frame, a dark figure appeared standing in the middle of an empty crossroads. The next frame, it was gone. The baker immediately flew the drone back to the location. Nothing was there. He landed the drone and replayed the recording. Again. The figure appeared for less than a second. Tall, completely black. No face, no details. just a silhouette. He zoomed in. The image became distorted. Digital interference covered the figure, almost as if the camera itself could not record it properly. That afternoon, he entered the town's emergency operations center. Backup generators were still running. Rows of computer monitors displayed weather reports and security systems. One monitor caught his attention. It showed a map of the town. At exactly 6:17 a.m., dozens of small tracking signals had disappeared at the same instant. Every ambulance, every police vehicle, every emergency radio, every signal ended together. No gradual failure, no system crash. Everything stopped in the same second. He checked the weather data. No earthquake, no storm, no power outage, no explosion. Nothing unusual had been recorded. The evidence made no sense. As evening approached, the baker walked back toward the church. The giant clock above the entrance still showed 6:17. He pushed open the heavy wooden doors. Inside, candles had burned themselves out. The pews were empty. The air smelled faintly of old wax. Then he noticed something strange. The church register lay open on the altar. Every page was blank. Thousands of names that had been recorded over decades had vanished from the paper. Only one line remained, written in fresh black ink. Do not search beneath the town. The baker slowly looked toward the stone floor. For the first time, he realized the mystery might not be above ground at all. The words refused to leave his mind. Do not search beneath the town. The ink was still wet. The baker touched the edge of the page. It smeared across his fingertip. Someone, or something, had written the warning recently, but there was no one inside the church. He searched every room, the bell tower, the storage closets, the priest's office. Nothing. The church was empty, only the warning remained. He carried the register back to the police station. If the answer was beneath the town, he first needed to understand what had happened above it. He searched through the evidence archive. Thousands of files filled the shelves. Most meant nothing. Then he found a locked cabinet marked Security Recordings. Inside were hard drives collected from cameras across the town hall, the train station, the hospital, the supermarket, the central square. He connected the first drive. The screen flickered. A timestamp appeared. 5:58 a.m. The streets looked completely normal. A delivery truck passed through the square. A woman walked her dog. A street cleaner swept leaves into a pile. Everything was ordinary. He fast-forwarded. 6:05 a.m. Children waited outside the school. The bakery lights switched on. Workers unlocked their shops. Still normal. He skipped ahead again. 6:12 a.m. Without warning, the image distorted. Horizontal lines flashed across the screen. The sound became a low mechanical hum. The interference lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then it stopped. People continued walking as though nothing had happened. No one looked concerned. No one reacted. He checked another camera. Exactly the same interference. Another. The same. Every camera recorded the identical disturbance. He paused the footage, frame by frame. On one single frame, a shadow stood at the end of the street, tall, completely black, featureless. The same figure the drone had captured. The next frame, it was gone. He opened the hospital recording. Doctors pushed patients through the corridor. Nurses laughed. Phones rang. Then, 6:16:58. The interference returned. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. The image stabilized. The hallway was empty. Wheelchairs stood motionless. Medical carts remained where they had been pushed. Every person had disappeared. Not one body. Not one scream. Simply, gone. His hands trembled. He opened another recording. The supermarket. Customers filled shopping carts. A cashier smiled at a child. The interference appeared. 3 seconds. Then complete emptiness. Food remained on conveyor belts. Shopping carts stopped where they had been pushed. Automatic doors continued opening and closing. No people. He replayed the footage 5 times. The result never changed. At exactly 6:17 a.m., the town ceased to contain human life. He searched for audio recordings. Most contained only static after the interference. But one emergency phone call had survived. A woman whispered into the receiver, "I can hear it." Silence. Then she spoke again. "It's under..." The recording cut off. Another emergency call lasted only 8 seconds. A man sounded terrified. "They're all looking at the church." Static swallowed the rest. A third call came from a train conductor. His breathing was rapid. "The tracks. They're moving." Then nothing. No screams. No crash, only silence. The baker spread every timeline across the desk. Each recording ended within the same second. It was impossible. Hundreds of people, different locations, different activities, all disappearing together. As midnight approached, the lights inside the police station suddenly flickered. The generators were still working, yet every monitor shut off. One by one, darkness filled the room. Then, a single screen turned back on by itself. It displayed a live camera feed. Not an old recording, a live image. The town square, empty, silent. Then a figure slowly walked across the screen. Tall, black, featureless. It stopped in the center of the square. Then, it looked directly into the camera. The screen exploded into static. When the picture returned, the figure was gone. But one new message had appeared across the monitor. You should have left. The message remained on the screen. You should have left. The baker reached for the keyboard. Before he could touch it, the words vanished. The monitor returned to the empty view of the town square. No figure, no movement, only silence. He checked every security system. No one had accessed the network. No signal had entered from outside. The message had appeared without a source. By sunrise, he realized the town was no longer just a crime scene. It was hiding its own history. He drove to the public library. The building smelled of old paper and dust. Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows. Thousands of books remained exactly where they had been left. The librarian's desk was empty. A pair of reading glasses rested on an open catalog. He searched for the town's earliest records. Most modern documents describe the town as being founded 200 years ago, but something did not fit. Several references mentioned an older settlement that had existed long before the current one. There were no details, only brief notes, almost as if someone had intentionally removed the story. Deep inside the archive room, he discovered a locked wooden cabinet. The key was still hanging from the lock. Inside were faded journals wrapped in cloth. The oldest one was written more than 400 years earlier. Its first page read, "If these pages survive, do not ring the bell before sunrise." The baker turned the page. The journal described strange mornings, when people claimed the streets felt wrong. Animals refused to enter the town. Birds flew around it instead of over it. Travelers reported hearing distant voices beneath the ground. Most dismissed the stories as superstition, until one entry. The handwriting became shaky. 32 people disappeared after the bell rang. No trace was ever found. He stopped reading. 32 people, centuries ago. Another disappearance. He searched the remaining journals. The pattern repeated. A record from the 18th century described 12 villagers vanishing after an unexplained electrical storm. A report from the 19th century mentioned 5 railway workers who entered a tunnel beneath the town and never returned. None of these events appeared in modern history books. Every official record had been erased. Only these forgotten journals remained. He unfolded an ancient map stored between the pages. It looked different from every modern map he had seen. The streets formed a strange circular pattern. At the exact center stood the church. Beneath it was a symbol unlike anything he recognized. Not a cross, not a compass. A series of concentric circles surrounding a dark hollow. Written beside it were 4 words: "The gate must sleep." His pulse quickened. He compared the ancient map to a modern one. The church had been rebuilt 3 times. The town hall had moved. Roads had changed. But one thing had never changed. The church had always stood over the exact same point. As if it had been built to guard something, he searched the basement of the library. Old newspaper collections filled dozens of shelves. One article caught his eye. It was never published. The headline had been crossed out in red ink. Government seals underground excavation. There was no author's name. Only black and white photographs. Workers stood beside a massive stone doorway buried beneath the town. The doorway was covered in symbols identical to those on the ancient map. On the back of one photograph, someone had written a single sentence. "We opened it for 11 minutes. Nothing else. No explanation. No follow-up. No official report." He placed the photograph beside the journal. Every clue pointed in the same direction. The answer was below the streets. As he prepared to leave the library, something heavy fell from the highest shelf. It landed at his feet with a dull thud. A small leather notebook. He was certain it had not been there moments earlier. There was no title, no date. He opened the first page. Only one sentence had been written. "They never disappeared. They were taken below. The notebook slipped slightly in his hands. He read the sentence again. They never disappeared. They were taken below. The words were written in dark ink that looked strangely fresh. There was no author's name, no date, only a small symbol in the corner of the page. It was the same symbol from the ancient map, the same circles surrounding a dark hollow. The baker placed the notebook into his backpack. He left the library and walked straight to the church. The morning fog had returned. The stone building stood exactly where it had for centuries, silent, waiting. He remembered every clue, the warning in the church register, the forgotten journals, the sealed excavation. Everything pointed beneath the church. Inside, he moved every piece of furniture he could. Nothing. He examined the altar, the wooden floor, the old stone walls. Still nothing. Then he noticed something unusual. One flagstone near the altar was smoother than the others. Its edges showed signs of wear, as though it had been lifted many times. He pushed against it. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. Then he remembered the old bell. The journal had warned, "Do not ring the bell before sunrise," but it said nothing about ringing it after sunrise. He climbed the narrow staircase into the bell tower. The rope hung motionless. He hesitated. Then he pulled it once. The bell echoed across the empty town. Deep, heavy, ancient. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, a loud grinding sound came from below. He rushed downstairs. The worn flagstone had shifted a few centimeters. A hidden staircase appeared beneath it. Cold air drifted upward. It carried the smell of damp stone and something metallic. He switched on his flashlight and descended. The stairs spiraled deep beneath the church, far deeper than the building should have allowed. The walls changed from brick to solid black stone. No mortar, no tool marks. The tunnel looked carved from a single piece of rock. At the bottom, the passage opened into a vast underground chamber. The beam of his flashlight disappeared into the darkness. Massive stone pillars surrounded the room. Each pillar was covered with strange symbols. The same symbols from the map. The same symbols from the notebook. The chamber was far older than the town above, perhaps older than history itself. In the center stood a circular platform. Around it were 12 enormous stone arches. Each arch was empty, but their surfaces shimmered faintly, as if reflecting light from somewhere else. The baker stepped closer. His flashlight flickered. The air felt unusually warm. A low vibration echoed through the chamber. Not loud, just enough to be felt beneath his feet. He discovered rusted equipment scattered around the edges of the room. Floodlights, generators, scientific instruments. Dust covered everything. This had to be the excavation mentioned in the newspaper. The government had been here. They had studied this place. Then they had abandoned it. On one table lay dozens of research notes. Most had faded beyond recognition. One page remained readable. It contained only 3 lines. Experiment 14 portal activation. 11 minutes evacuation ordered immediately. The baker stared at the words. Portal. The room suddenly felt much colder. He walked toward one of the stone arches. Its surface looked empty, until he stood directly in front of it. For a brief second, he saw movement. Not a reflection. Not himself. People. Hundreds of people. Standing silently on the other side. Men. Women. Children. They were looking directly at him. None of them moved. None of them blinked. Their expressions were frozen. Then, every flashlight in the chamber went out. Complete darkness. A voice echoed softly through the underground hall. It did not come from behind him, or in front of him. It came from everywhere at once. It whispered only 5 words. You opened it again, Michael. The baker's blood ran cold. He had never told anyone his name. Michael could not breathe. The voice had spoken his name, not the name people used every day. His full name, the one written only on official documents. There was no one in the chamber. His flashlight flickered back to life. The 12 stone arches stood exactly where they had been, silent, empty. The people he had seen were gone. Only darkness remained beyond the arches. He forced himself to stay calm. Fear would answer nothing. Evidence might. He searched the abandoned research equipment more carefully. Inside a rusted metal cabinet, he found sealed folders. Most carried government markings. Several pages had been burned. Others had been deliberately removed. But enough remained to reveal one thing. The investigators had never agreed on what they had found. There wasn't one explanation. There were many, and every theory contradicted the others. One report claimed the chamber was part of a classified Cold War project. Scientists believed the arches could distort gravity and electromagnetic fields. During the first activation, every electronic device in town briefly failed. Clocks stopped. Radio signals vanished. Cameras glitched. Exactly what Michael had seen on the security footage. The report concluded that an uncontrolled energy release might have displaced the town's population. But one sentence had been circled in red. No known technology can explain biological disappearance. The theory explained the electronics. It explained nothing about the people. Theory 2. A natural phenomenon. Another team rejected the military explanation. They believed the chamber rested above an unknown geological structure, powerful magnetic fields, rare underground crystals, natural energy pulses. According to them, the town had unknowingly been built over a place unlike any other on Earth. Every few centuries, the energy reached a critical point. When it did, something happened, but they admitted there was no scientific model capable of predicting it. Theory 3. A dimensional event. This report was different. It was never signed. It simply referred to the arches as thresholds. The researchers believed the arches were not machines. They were doors. Not doors through space, doors through reality itself. The report suggested that the people of the town had not died. They had crossed into another version of the world. A world existing beside this one. Invisible. Close enough to touch. Impossible to reach. Michael remembered the silent faces he had seen beyond the arch. His hands began to shake. Theory 4. A psychological illusion. A medical team proposed a completely different answer. According to them, no one had disappeared. The chamber emitted frequencies capable of altering human perception. Michael himself might be hallucinating. The empty streets, the abandoned buildings, the strange voices, even the underground chamber. Everything could be an illusion, created inside his own mind. He wanted to dismiss the idea. But one question refused to leave him. If he was imagining everything, who had been answering the emergency radio? Theory 5. The old legend. The oldest documents ignored science completely. They described the chamber as the sleeping gate. According to the legend, something ancient lived beyond the arches. It never crossed into the human world. Instead, it waited. Every few centuries, someone awakened the gate. And when it opened, it did not take everyone. It only took those who looked back. Michael frowned. He remembered the security footage. In the final seconds before the disappearance, many people had been facing the church, almost as if something had drawn their attention. He had ignored that detail. Now it seemed impossible to forget. He gathered every report onto one table. 5 explanations. 5 different realities. None fit perfectly. Each solved one part of the mystery. Each failed somewhere else. Then he noticed one final envelope hidden beneath the files. It contained no report, only a photograph. The picture had clearly been taken inside this chamber decades earlier. A group of scientists stood beside the central platform. Michael counted them. 1, 2, 3, 11. The caption on the back read, 12 entered. He counted again. There were still only 11 people in the photograph. One investigator had vanished, long before the town itself disappeared. As Michael lowered the photograph, a slow, steady sound echoed through the chamber. Footsteps. Not his. Someone was walking in the darkness beyond the arches. The footsteps stopped. Michael held his breath. The beam of his flashlight trembled across the nearest stone arch. Nothing. Only darkness. Then, one step, another, slow, measured, as if someone wanted to be heard. "Who's there?" His voice echoed through the chamber. No answer came back. Only silence. The footsteps began again. This time they circled the room, never getting closer, never moving farther away, always just beyond the edge of the light. Michael refused to run. If the truth existed anywhere, it was here. He searched the remaining research equipment. Inside a steel case, he found something different. A portable tape recorder. Unlike the computers, it still had power. A label covered in dust read, "Final interview. Lead researcher." He pressed play. Static filled the chamber, then a tired voice spoke. "We've confirmed the arches are not artificial." A pause. "They're older than the mountain itself." More static. "We believed we discovered them." Another pause. The truth is, they discovered us. Michael's grip tightened. The recording continued. Activation lasts exactly 11 minutes. During that time, the boundary becomes transparent. You can see them. They can see you. A long silence followed. Then the researcher's voice changed. It became slower, more frightened. The mistake is looking back. The tape crackled violently. Another voice interrupted. It wasn't the researchers. It sounded distant, almost underwater. Open the last arch, the researcher shouted. No! Metal crashed. People screamed. The tape ended. Michael stood frozen. The room felt colder than before. He turned toward the 12 arches. He counted them carefully. 1, 2, 3, 11, 12. Then he noticed something impossible. The 12th arch was different. It had no dust. The stone looked newer, as though it had been used recently. He stepped closer. Symbols carved into the frame began to glow with a faint blue light. His flashlight flickered. The vibration beneath the floor returned. This time it was stronger. The air inside the arch shimmered, like heat rising from pavement. Shapes slowly appeared. Not shadows. People. Hundreds of them. Standing silently. Exactly as before. But now, they were moving. Very slowly. Each one took a single step forward. Then another. Their faces became clearer. Some looked frightened. Some were crying. Some pressed their hands against an invisible barrier. Then Michael saw someone he recognized. His wife. She looked exactly as she had that morning. She raised one hand. Not to wave, to warn him. She slowly shook her head. No. Her lips formed the word without making a sound. Behind her stood his son. Then his brother. Then the baker from the cafe. The entire town. Alive. Watching him. A tear rolled down Michael's face. He reached toward the shimmering surface. His fingers stopped only inches away. The researcher's warning echoed in his mind. The mistake is looking back. Then, someone behind him whispered, Michael. It was his wife's voice, but it came from behind him, not from the arch. He slowly turned. A woman stood in the darkness. She looked exactly like his wife. She smiled. Then her eyes became completely black. Michael stumbled backward. The woman did not move. She looked exactly like his wife. The same face, the same clothes, the same wedding ring. But her eyes were completely black. Not dark brown, not shadowed. Black. As if there were nothing behind them. She smiled again. You're late, she said softly. Her voice was perfect. Every word sounded exactly like the woman he loved. Michael shook his head. No. The figure tilted her head. You've already been here. His heart stopped. What did you say? You've opened the gate before. Michael stared in silence. That was impossible. He had never seen this place until today. The woman raised one hand. The air around them shimmered. Suddenly, images appeared in front of him. Not dreams, not visions, memories. He saw himself standing inside the chamber. Older researchers surrounded him. Machines filled the room. The stone arches glowed with blue light. He heard someone counting. 10 minutes. 9. 8. He watched himself step toward the 12th arch. Then the memory ended. Michael staggered backward. No, it isn't real. The woman smiled sadly. That is what you said last time. Silence filled the chamber. Michael closed his eyes. He forced himself to think. Everything he had seen could still have an explanation. The military files suggested classified experiments. The geological reports described unknown natural energy. The dimensional theory explained the people behind the arches. The psychological report claimed none of it was real. Each theory solved part of the mystery. None solved all of it. He looked toward the stone platform. For the first time, he noticed an inscription carved around its edge. It had been hidden beneath centuries of dust. He brushed the surface clean. The words were written in an ancient language. Beneath them, someone had added a modern translation. The gate does not choose the lost. The lost choose the gate. Michael read it again. The sentence changed everything. Perhaps the town had not been taken. Perhaps every person had crossed willingly. Drawn by something only they could see. Something impossible to resist. He remembered the security recordings. Just before the disappearance, people had slowly turned toward the church. Not in fear, in curiosity. As though they had heard someone calling their names. The woman watched him carefully. You finally understand. Michael ignored her. Instead, he searched the research notes one last time. Tucked inside the final folder was a handwritten letter. It had never been sent. It was addressed simply, "To whoever finds this place." The final lines read, "You will spend years searching for the truth. When you believe you have found it, ask yourself one question. Who is investigating whom?" Michael lowered the letter. Every answer had created another mystery. Every clue had raised another contradiction. Perhaps that had been the purpose all along. Perhaps the chamber was never hiding from humanity. Perhaps humanity had never truly understood what it had discovered. The woman slowly stepped backward into the darkness. "So," she whispered, "will you come home?" Michael looked toward the shimmering arch. His family stood waiting. Then he looked back toward the staircase, leading to the empty town above. Two worlds, two impossible choices. He took one slow step forward. The chamber began to shake. The blue light grew brighter. And somewhere above, the church bell rang exactly 6:17 once again. The church bell echoed through the chamber. One strike, deep, ancient, unmistakable. Michael looked at his watch. The seconds had stopped. The display read only one time, 6:17. The vibration beneath his feet grew stronger. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The blue light surrounding the 12th arch spread slowly across the floor. The woman with the black eyes was gone. Only his family remained beyond the shimmering barrier. His wife smiled gently. His son reached toward him. Neither spoke. Neither blinked. Michael closed his eyes. For the first time since the town had fallen silent, he stopped searching for an explanation. Every theory had failed. Every clue had led to another contradiction. The military files explained the strange electromagnetic disturbances. The geological reports explained nothing about the people. The dimensional theory explained the figures behind the arches. The psychological theory explained the impossible visions. The ancient legends had predicted the event centuries before it happened. None of them could explain all of it. Perhaps the mystery had never been meant to be solved. Perhaps it had only been meant to be witnessed. Michael stepped onto the circular platform. The symbols carved into the stone began to glow. One by one, a deep humming sound filled the chamber. The 12 arches awakened together. Inside each one appeared a different place, a frozen mountain, a desert beneath unfamiliar stars, an endless ocean without a horizon, a city built from black stone, a forest where the trees seemed to breathe. Each arch opened onto somewhere impossible. Then the 12th arch changed. It no longer showed Michael's family. Instead, it showed the town, alive. Children ran through the square. The bakery was open. People laughed in outdoor cafes. Church bells rang. Everything looked exactly as it had before 6:17. Michael searched the crowd. He found himself standing outside the bakery, looking at his watch, completely unaware of what was about to happen. He realized the terrible truth. He was not looking into another world. He was looking into the past. The gate had not simply crossed space. It crossed time. A whisper filled the chamber. Soft, calm, almost kind. "You may return." Michael stared at the living town. One step through the arch could erase everything. He could warn everyone. Stop the bell, close the chamber, save the town. Then another voice echoed through the darkness. Older, deeper. "You cannot change what creates you." Michael understood. If he stopped the disappearance, he would never enter the chamber. If he never entered the chamber, no one would be there to discover the truth. The mystery would begin again. An endless circle. The gate had never trapped the town. It had trapped time itself. Michael took one slow breath. He stepped away from the arch. The vision faded. His wife smiled one final time. Not with sadness, with acceptance. She slowly lowered her hand. The people behind the barrier dissolved into light. The 12 arches darkened, one after another. The humming stopped. The chamber fell silent. Above him, morning sunlight streamed through the opening beneath the church. Michael climbed the long staircase. When he reached the surface, the town was still empty. The streets remained silent. The coffee cups had long gone cold. The clock still read 6:17. Nothing had changed. Except one thing. On the church steps lay a notebook that had never been there before. Its cover was worn with age. Michael opened it. The first page contained a single handwritten sentence. "If you are reading this, you are the next witness." The final page was blank, except for one fresh line of ink that appeared before his eyes. It simply read, "Your turn to remember." No official explanation was ever found. No scientific theory answered every question. No bodies were discovered. No survivors were identified. The town remained abandoned. Maps still showed its location, but travelers who searched for it reported something unsettling. They found the road, they found the valley, they found the church. Yet no town stood there, only empty ground where thousands of people were supposed to have lived. Some believe it was a secret experiment. Some believe it was a doorway between realities. Some believe the town never existed at all. And a few believe something far more disturbing, that the town is still there, waiting, perfectly preserved, frozen forever at 617, waiting for the next person who hears the bell.